Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down the first week one NFL slate here on DraftKings starting tomorrow in a little under 20 hours. I'll be going over my favorite plays. I'll be building a lineup for you guys, kind of going over how I look to attack the slate, kind of going over the injury news, all that good stuff in this video. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get into it. So starting off with this breakdown, I think for the foreseeable future, I kind of want these videos to be around 15 minutes so I'm able to touch everything, but not have them go on too long where I'm kind of just dragging on. And then I will have my Patreon starting up next week for week two, where I'll offer more in-depth stats, snap counts, snap share percentage, all that good stuff, and more details, and like a daily breakdown and write-up for you guys will be over there starting week two. And so, yeah, make sure to check that out starting next week. But yeah, getting into the slate here. How many games is it? 13 games on the slate. And then the Sunday night football game is going to be Cowboys Giants. So as you can see right here, the first thing I like to do is kind of obviously one, you want to check the injury news. As I mentioned, follow Underdog or Underdog NFL on Twitter to get your guys' updated news when it comes to injury news. So make sure to check that out. And then you also want to check out the sports books, and you just want to get a sense of kind of what the game totals are going to be, according to Vegas, kind of what they're expecting. As you can see, this first game here, Texans Ravens, 43 and a half, a little bit of blowout risk here in this game. Ravens favored by 9.5. Bucks Vikings could be a decent one, 46 game total. Bengals Browns, second highest on the slate right now at 47.5. Niners Steelers, don't feel great about that one, 41.5. Jags Colts could be an interesting one there with the Colts, 46. Titans Saints, 42. Kind of an, one kind of hiding there. Cardinals Commanders, 38. Lowest of the day so far. 39.5 for the Panthers Falcons. Packers Bears, 41.5. Eagles Patriots, 45. Dolphins and the Chargers, 51. Highest game total of the slates going into Vegas for tomorrow. And then we have the Rams Seahawks, 46. And then the Raiders and Broncos, 43.5. So a ton of games starting off for tomorrow. We'll get into, we're going to do breakdown by position for this video and kind of moving forward as well. It just makes it easier than going game by game. Just be kind of breaking down my favorite players from each group, maybe 5 to 6 for each group. But starting off here with the QB side, obviously Lamar Jackson starting at 8K for us here. I like him a lot versus Houston. Houston's a pretty bad team. Defense is a little bit better than last year, but still they're pretty bad. Lamar had a very underwhelming year last year. Obviously, he was hurt for most of the second half of that season. As you can see, he started off hot, 21, 48, 43, and then really cooled off. Didn't do much, and then he got injured. So we know he has massive upside. I really like him here. He'll be one of the most expensive quarterbacks, and he's one of those guys where you can play him naked. And what you mean by that is you can play him without pairing him with like a tight end or any of his receivers, just because we know he has massive rushing upside. So I think he's a very solid spin up option. I don't love Jalen Hurts. It really just comes down to ownership for me on him. Just at that price tag going against New England's defense, who has always been very stout and solid. So not my favorite to go to him. I don't mind Fields there at 7,700, but he's very priced up there. Still don't know with that passing game there. He really has to do a ton on the field in terms of running. Don't feel the best about him there. Burrow against Cleveland, I think it's a solid option. He just got paid. It's Joe Burrow. I think he's decent, but I think my favorite one right now out of these kind of top range of guys is going to be Justin Herbert. Going to be a super popular one. 51 point game total there. Another guy who had a very kind of underwhelming season in terms of just fantasy, especially the back half of it. So I like him to step it up this year, kind of get back in the swing of things. So really like him there at 6,900. Don't mind Tua there, obviously on the opposite side of the ball on the field there for the Dolphins. Very solid one there. Lawrence looks decent against Indiana, but I think right now my favorite is kind of taking a shot on one of these cheaper guys here. Where do you go? Howell is going to be super popular, starting QB, going against a terrible Arizona defense. He looked decent in the preseason game, so he's going to be super popular just if you want looking for a QB that's very cheap and has some solid upside. He is definitely one because we know decent running game, and they also have very solid receivers with Scary Terry. They have Dotson, so he looks like a very solid option if you want to go cheap. He's probably your best bet in this 5 to 5.5K range. I don't mind going to Derek Carr, going against Tennessee's defense. Looks like a solid bet here. We know he's upside there. He has some options, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. So I do like him a lot. Um, but I think my favorite QB right now is probably going to be. I think personally, it's going to be either Herbert or Tua, which obviously is not a strong or hot take, just because they're going to be super popular because of that game total. But it's hard not to kind of gravitate towards them, and then you can get different in different spots. If you want like a kind of guy who's under the radar, I'd look to Deshaun Watson. We know his rushing upside. Didn't see a ton of it last year. Obviously, didn't play a ton of games there. What he played like the last 5, 6 games, didn't do too well, but he was still learning the offense. Expect him the whole offseason here this year to really bounce back. I expect him to throw the ball probably 30 plus times. I do expect him to rush the ball. As you can see here, he was solid at rushing the ball. 6 for 33, 6 for 22, 3 for 24, 8 for 31, 6 for 44. So he's not afraid to get out there and rush it. So I do really like him if you want more of a kind of a guy who's flying under the radar and a game total that's pretty solid. You can pair him with Cooper, you can pair him with Peoples Jones. He's got some decent options. So that's kind of my take on quarterback. But right now, let's just throw in Justin Herbert for the sake of this video and to the running backs here. So running backs, we know we're getting from Christian McCaffrey, 8,700. Just an absolute beast. His floor is about 18 fantasy points. His ceiling can go for 40 plus. It'll be interesting to see what kind of what happens. I think Brock Purdy is good to go if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it looks like he should be good to go. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind getting into Christian McCaffrey there. Obviously, you're paying a pretty hefty price tag, but you're getting from him. But there are some cheap options here for running back that we can go over for today. So starting off with at the top, we'll just start at the top. Sorry, all over the place right now. Eckler, very solid against Miami, 8,400. He gets a ton of dump off passes from um, Herbert. So if you're playing Herbert, Eckler is one of those guys you can pair him with. Very solid option there. Nick Chubb, I do think it will fly under the radar here. Very solid back, 8,200. I do expect Cleveland to throw it a little bit more this year, but still, there's no Kareem Hunt, so I really like Nick Chubb there as a player. Pretty pricey. I think people will be scared of the price tag. They'd rather get to guys who've way more receiving upside, like an Eckler, McCaffrey, or even Bijan there at 8,000. I don't know how I feel about that price tag. I'd rather just wait and see kind of how they handle him with the other running backs, like Algier. I know Cordell might not play, but you have Algier there who ran for over 1,000 yards last season. They're definitely going to run like a duo backfield. So I don't know. It's hard to trust Bijan not knowing what's going to happen there. So I'm kind of out on that price tag there for him. My favorite in this top range is probably going to be Chubb, just because he's a little bit cheaper than other guys. Doesn't have as much upside in terms of receiving, but his ownership should be probably half of what those guys are, depending on how it plays out for tomorrow. Derrick Henry, I think, is a very solid option there against Tennessee. We know what we're getting from him. Obviously, not a ton of rushing upside, but he's like a Nick Chubb. They can absolutely explode. So do really like him. Josh Jacobs, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of handle his workload. Kind of missed out on some training camp there. He held out pretty much the whole offseason. So maybe he comes on in a little bit rusty. Maybe their offense is a little bit different with Jimmy, who also missed a ton of time. So I think it's more of a stay away, but he's a solid option. Stevenson has that questionable tag, but he should probably be good to go. One of the things, I don't expect him to kind of have a massive workload. He even said it himself, like he doesn't want to come in and had to rush for like 15 times, also go out for like 20 routes. So I think we expect the same kind of workload from him as we saw last year, where he could range from 10 to 15 rushes depending on the game flow. But what we really want from him is that receiving upside, which he's very, very solid at. So I think he's a solid play there. Not like a must get to. I don't really feel strong about like the top end running backs as of right now. I'd probably rather pay cheaper and pay up for better wide receivers. ETN's there, doesn't really move the needle for me. Same with Mixon. Two guys who have catching upside. Dobbins is pretty expensive, even though he's going against Houston. I think I'd rather take a shot in Lamar. Madison's there. Connor, it's just like no really strong standouts to me as of right now until we kind of get down to this cheaper range where, I don't mind taking a shot on Javonte Williams. He looked like an absolute dog, but one of those things where I don't know if he'll play. Yeah, he's going to be on some sort of like a snap count, so don't want to go there. But when we get into this range where you get some cheap guys who have rushing upside and they can also catch the ball, so a guy like where do you go? Rashad White there for Tampa. A guy who gets looks out of the backfield. He's very solid. I do really like the DeAndre Swift here. I think he's flying under the radar. Obviously, not the best year with the Lions. They kind of screwed him just in terms of output, but we know he can go for massive, massive games. in terms of rushing. He is receiving upside as well. So I really like him. He's kind of my favorite running back here as of right now. Obviously going against the New England defense, but still, I think he's very, very solid upside. So I'm going to throw him in the lineup for right now. You got Monster going against the Chargers. I don't mind that. Herbert's there. But I do like Gibson a good amount. I think he's one of those options where I think he can regain the number one running back role here in Washington, kind of with the whole new change of everyone. So I like him. Another running back with huge upside in terms of catching the ball. So he's a very solid option down there. Jamal Williams, another guy who's going to be super popular. Why? Because they really only have him as running back. Kamara suspended. Um, the rookie out of TCU, Keandre Miller, I think his name is, he's questionable. They cut like the third string, so they really don't have much down there. He's cheap, 5,100. Should get a full workload. Um, Not the best runner, not the most efficient. This is behind a Detroit Lions line that was one of the best lines in the league. He really just kind of benefited a lot from touchdowns. So not the most efficient runner, but he's definitely there. But he's super cheap. No one to really compete with him. So he'll be a very strong option and very, very popular option. Samaje Perine, I think he's a decent option there. Should split the backfield with Javonte being on more of a snap count. Who else are we looking at? That's really it. Once again, it's like I don't really have any strong takes just because I want to see kind of how week one plays out. So for me right now, it's just kind of more of a wait and see approach. With a lot of these guys, I'd rather just lean towards the guys um, like a Herbert. Pay up for the guys where we know the production's coming from. Um, yeah, I think right now I'll probably just throw in Gibson here. Don't love it, but I'm going to throw him in there. In terms of wide receivers, so obviously at the top, we have Justin Jefferson, 8,800. We know what we're getting from him. It's just really if you want to pay up for him at that price tag. Obviously, a solid option here going against Tampa Bay. They still have a solid defense, even though they're going to be a trash team offensively. So I don't mind him. 8,800. He is definitely there. Cup on IR, so we'll talk about the Rams here quickly in a bit. But Tyreek Hill, another thing. We know what we're getting from him. He'll probably get close to 15 targets because Tua only throws it to him, but he's solid. In this top range, if I had to pick one of the wide receivers from, let's say, Devontae to Jefferson, it'd probably be Tyreek Hill. I just think he's the safest. I think Devontae is the clear standout in terms of being the riskiest, just because I don't trust Jimmy G. It's not like a Derek Carr. I don't Jimmy G. It's just I don't trust Jimmy G right now, so it's hard for me to get to Devontae with confidence. I know he can kind of go off with any quarterback, but still, I'd rather pay up for the other guys than get to Devontae. Maybe that keeps his ownership down. Maybe a lot of people are thinking that if his ownership's 5, 10, 15+% less than these other guys, I'd probably go to him just because of the ownership play. AJ Brown, I do think he'll kind of float there in the mid range of people not really wanting to pay up for him, just because there's pay up a couple hundred more for safer options, or you can pay down. So I do think he'll be a solid kind of low ownership play there. Keenan Allen's going to be super popular because people are going to stack him, him, Allen, or Herbert, Allen, and uh, blanking out, Austin Eckler. Sorry. So I think he's a solid option to pair with Herbert. So we know what we're getting from him. He was a very solid wide receiver when he did play in that second part of the season. Should go for 10+ targets. Very solid. Not like huge throws. They're all kind of intermediate or short, but he racks up a ton of catches. Waddle. I love Waddle. Very, very solid player. It's just a shame that Tua only throws it to Tyreek because Waddle could be a top 5 wide receiver in the league if he just got the looks. Like 6 catches, 5 for 143, or 6 targets, caught 5 for 143 and a touchdown. Like massive, massive upside. It's just, one of those things where Tua sometimes only focuses on Tyreek. So, I think he's a solid play there. I do like dipping down here into some cheaper options though. As I said, with the Rams there, Cooper Kupp is out. So we'll have some options there to get to. I really like Calvin Ridley. I know a lot of people are high on him this year. 6,500. He looked great in the preseason. Just great overall in training camp. 6,500 should be number one wide receiver for that team there. So I really like him. Olave looks solid, but I think one of my favorite ones is going to be a little bit cheaper down here. We'll get to him real fast. Mike Williams, more of a boomer bust guy, but in a game total this high, I expect Mike Williams to be able to flourish. So I really like him pairing him up here with Justin Herbert. more of a deep ball pass catcher, but a contested catch guy. But he has huge upside. So I really like him there. Who else do we got here? Um, I think Deontay Johnson, this is a very cheap price tag for a guy who should see about 10 targets. Obviously, one of those guys who really just catches it 20 yards and in. No real deep bombs from him. I do expect him to fall in the end zone this year, though. So if he still gets that monster elite production in terms of targets, if he falls in the end zone, he's going to be averaging close to 20 fantasy points per game just because of that touchdown plus all the normal targets he gets. So I really like him there, even though they're going against a tough San Fran defense. They should be down, so they should be able to throw it a lot, or should have to throw it a lot. So I do really like him. But I think one of my favorite receivers right now is going to be Cortland Sutton, Jerry Judy is probably not going to play. They called up two guys from the practice squad, so Cortland Sutton already kind of a wide receiver one. I guess you can make an argument it's Judy, but still, I really like him. I do think Russ is going to step it up this year with Sean Payton as their head coach. We know he's upside there. He can go for mid-teens. He can go for 20 plus. Really just comes down to how good Russ is. So I really like Cortland Sutton as like a cheap option that should see elite volume for tomorrow. Going against the Raiders defense, that's not the best. So I really like him there. And if we're going to pick Herbert as QB, probably want another one to pair him up with. So we can either go tight end with Gerald Everett if you want to get a little bit different and fade like a Keenan Allen or Austin Eckler. I kind of like going that route. You want to get different. A lot of people are going to go to Herbert in that game. So people are going to pick Eckler. They're going to pick Mike Williams. They're going to pick Keenan Allen. A lot of people are not going to go to Gerald Everett. So I do like throwing him in there at the tight end. So we'll get to him in a minute. But right now, that's kind of the main thing there. I do really like Michael Thomas, kind of a sneaky play there with Derek Carr thrown to him. Anyone else that's cheap that I do like? Smith Najigba, he's solid. Ayuk, we got some good options down here for some cheap guys that could really have a huge impact. Mooney, we know that the Packers wide receiver room is banged up, but I'd rather get to the running backs there than play their wide receivers. And then let's get to the kind of the. Did I miss over some running backs here? Oh, sorry. For running backs, Aaron Jones, really like him there at 6,300. He should get a huge workload there. And same with AJ Dillon. He's like a pivot play off of Aaron Jones. Really like AJ Dillon as well. I think two very solid plays that are very, very cheap for kind of their expected workload. So really like both of those. I'm gonna throw Aaron Jones in there real fast. And then sorry, we'll get to the Rams situation real fast and then kind of wrap up this video. Where'd they go? 1 second. Rams there. Cup. So we have Jefferson, Skoranek, Atwell. We also have Denard Robinson, I think. Not Denard, Duncan, whatever his dude's name is. No, not really sure, but I think the wide receivers will be Jefferson, Skoranek, and Tutu. And I do think we'll get some Puka. Yeah, so there's a lot to get here in terms of cheap options. A lot of people are going to, land on Tutu and Naku, Puka, whatever his name is. I prefer Atwell, kind of a more of a gadget guy. But yeah, they should be in line for a huge workload there with Matt Stafford and no Cooper Cup. So I guess we'll throw in Tutu as kind of some salary relief. Get to the tight ends here. Mark Andrews, questionable hamstring. Kittle's also questionable. A lot going on there with with these tight ends. I thought I was missing someone. Hawkinson, like him a lot, as we saw the last half of the season. Ton of targets there from Kirk Cousins. So really like the upside there for TJ Hawkinson in that game there against Tampa Bay. Kittle, questionable. Don't love him going against Pittsburgh. He's just kind of there for me. Same thing with Goddard. The tight ends are very cheap kind of for their production. Really like Higbee. He's another guy who should really benefit from no Cooper Cup. The guy who saw double-digit targets a decent amount last year, even with no Matt Stafford. So I expected them to get on the same page. Expected them to utilize him a ton for tomorrow. So I do really like him. Ingram's there. He is fine. Pitts, Kmet, Gerald Everett. As I said, want to get different if you're going to play Herbert. Everett does have some solid upside, especially in the red zone. Can, be a double-digit target guy, even with those other guys out there. So I do really like him. He's a very solid option there to kind of get off the chalky, stack of like a Herbert, Eckler, and Allen. And then moving on to defense. I mean, defense, it's kind of a crapshoot. Obviously, taking the Washington defense is probably going to be a very solid option there going against Arizona. Don't mind taking, like a Green Bay Packers D or the Bears D in that game. But, for the most part, you do want to punt with the defenses. A lot can happen. You can pay up for a defense and have them, you know, score you 2 points. You can pay down for a defense that can go for 30. It's very just, luck based when it comes to defense and getting it right. Obviously, the better the defense, the better chances that it's a low scoring game and they score more points for you. But it's always a smart option to kind of punt defenses unless there's a clear number one defense that you should be playing, that everyone will probably be playing. But right now, I do think I feel fine going to the Commanders defense there, 2,800, going against Arizona. Josh Dobbs, no real confidence in the Arizona team right now. So I like throwing in that defense there. Gives us 10-4 left over to really pay up for anyone. So we can get anyone we want. We can get Justin Jefferson, CMC, Eckler, Chubb, whoever we want here. I like bringing it back here. So if you're going to stack that Chargers game, you're going to want to bring back Tyreek Hill is that bring back there for us, 8,200. We have obviously Herbert, Mike Williams, Everett. We're bringing it back with Tyreek Hill and a high total point game. If you're going to stack one QB, you should have at least one bring back, if not two. So that will be our bring back there with Tyreek Hill. 2,200 left over to play around with. We could pay up for a running back. So if you don't feel good with Swift, we'll take him out. 7,600 left over. Doesn't feel the best there going to this range of, like a Stevenson. Let's see here. I'm going to just throw Miles Sanders, or it's not Miles Sanders. I'm going to throw Swift back in there and then just pay up at a different position. Like you can get off 2-2. Don't really need to pay down for him there. 5,200 left over for wide receiver. Jordan Adson's there, Michael Thomas. We have some okay options. But if we move Tyreek Hill to the wide receiver spots, and then we have that flex position, 5,200 left over. We'll scroll down, and we'll get the running backs as well. Gibson, AJ Dillon, as I mentioned. Obviously, you're not going to play him and Jones together. But we get Michael Thomas. You get down to cheaper options here. You can go double tight end to get a little bit different there. Don't mind that. Right now, I'm going to go to Najigba there for the Seattle. I think he's going to have a huge season. So, yeah, right now, that's kind of the early look breakdown. As I mentioned, in week 2, I'll have this coming out, this video for Sunday football coming out either like Friday or Saturday morning. And then more in-depth breakdown of who I'm really targeting, why, all that stuff in my write-up on my Patreon. So this is more of just kind of a getting back in the flow of things. So I do apologize if it's a little long, if I am rambling, not touching on everything, but we'll get back in the flow of things for next week. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hit the like button and check out my other videos. Peace.